FloTrack is on site here in Virginia Beach at the 2025 NCAA Indoor Track and Field Championships. I'm Ashley Tishins here with John Davern. John, we are just one day away from the start of action here in Virginia Beach. Like, how are you doing? Like, how excited are you? I know I'm pretty pumped for this.
I think every day over the last week, I've gotten more and more excited each day. Like, you start with the entries last week, and then you see kind of the accepted entries, and then you kind of start diving into the fields, and you just get more and more excited because this could be one of the best NCAA indoor championships we've seen in a very long time.
And so this is going to serve as like our little preview show for NCAA. So we're going to break down the top storylines, the top events to watch. We're going to give our team predictions as well.
Yep.
So
some hot takes.
That's for sure. Definitely. Well, let's go ahead and start off. There's lots to talk about, but I think a good place to start is just, man, how hard was it to qualify for these championships? If you look at those qualifying cutoff times, I mean, some of the fastest marks we've ever seen before.
Yeah, so many men and women hit world standards, number one.
Yeah.
A lot of these athletes are still leading the world or in the top 5 in the world in their respective events. It would be hard to make a national championship for most countries in the world if these were the standards that you had to hit. So I think I want to talk about the 3K. It's been on my mind all weekend. I've been hyping it up. I wrote a preview about it this morning. Check it out on FloTrack. To basically, entering the year, the world standard was 7:31 in that event. Ethan Strand came out and said that, there's no way anyone's going to run that, especially not in the U.S. Well, then him and Parker Wolf hit that a week later, right? And then you had Yassine Abdallah and Gary Martin in that same race at BU season opener run under the previous NCAA record. A month later, you had Liam Murphy and Marco Langen also break the previous record, run 7:36 and change. So stacked event. Those are just 6 boys. I mean, there's 16 men in that race. When we look at the field as a whole, 14 of the 16 men are doubling back from either a 5K, DMR, or a mile. So kind of crazy right there.
It's going to be wild. I'm glad you bring up the men's 3K. I think it's a good place to start because in my mind, like you said, I think it's one of the most anticipated events of the entire championship. And, you mentioned a lot of names like, the collegiate record holder Ethan Strand, Parker Wolf, Yassine Abdallah, Gary Martin, all these guys chose to do the 3K and then some will be doing the 5K and a couple will be doing the mile in the DMR. But why do you think they all chose to go full throttle for this 3K?
It's just how the schedule works out, right? You have the mile, it's a 2-day event, so it makes it difficult to kind of double back for the mile. I think the only man who's doing that is Colin Salmon. So he's going to try to double the mile day 1, day 2, and then run the 3K, which that's not an easy double, right? No. It's kind of a triple. It technically is a triple. And then you have the 5K men who are all right, well, if all these guys we're expecting a lot of these guys to dodge the 5K to run the 3K and mile and maybe the DMR, well, let's get in the 5K and try to run something quick and then double back for the 3K, because why not, right? And then you have the DMR, and the DMR is kind of the question mark, right? Are coaches going to play games? Are they entering Parker Wolf and Ethan Strand, which UNC did? Are they going to run them both? And so a lot of games to be played there. Obviously, most of those entries have 8 men listed on their DMR. Only 4 men can run, so we'll see what happens there. But it makes for a really interesting race in the 3K, and that's why I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, and I think because of that, I know we have talked about this. I think there's going to be a couple different strategies at play. It's either going to be, because of the caliber of the field, let's just go all out, full throttle. It's going to be a fast race, or it'll be your typical championship style, very sit and kick, and it's going to come down who has the most leg speed at the end to win.
Yeah.
Part of me wants to say that I think it's going to go pretty fast just because, seeing how these guys have run all season, they're going pretty hard after that 3K. But I don't know, do you think it could be a conservative? Where do you fall, I guess, on that debate?
Gosh, I really hope it's fast. I hope it's fast. I think it can go either way, right? A lot of those guys are doubling back, so they're going to be on tired legs. In some ways, I find that almost makes it more honest. They're not saving their legs for anything else, so they might as well go all out. But like I said, it depends who you are. If you're Ethan Strand, Yassine Abdallah, you might want to make it a little bit more aggressive. Yassine Abdallah did that in that record-breaking NCAA race at the BU season opener. That was the reason they broke the NCAA, well, maybe not the reason they broke the NCAA record, but the reason they ran so fast, right? 7:30 and change. If Yassine Abdallah didn't go to the lead with 5 laps left, they weren't going to hit that. So I'll be curious to see what he wants to do, right? And you kind of got to see him race at SEC, so what did you see out of him there?
The SEC 3K was so interesting, right? Because it really was just such a strategic race, and you saw Yassine Abdallah, Ruben Reyna, and Patrick Kiprop, the Arkansas guys, really at the end, they were trying to pack it up and finish 1, 2, 3. But because it went out so slow from the get-go, Drew Rogers of Missouri all of a sudden comes from mid-pack and outkicks all of them. So, and you could tell afterwards Yassine Abdallah was just kind of on the ground, kind of in disbelief, So it makes me question, like, okay, if this is a sit and kick race, like, will some of these guys, like you've seen, like, how will they respond to that?
Yeah, I think if it's a sit and kick race, you have to look at Parker Wolf, you know, a guy who's kind of had an off indoor season. I think there was speculation that he was hurt for a little bit. Obviously, I don't know the full story there, but it helps a guy like him, Gary Martin. Obviously, we know what Gary Martin's kick looks like. He's more of a mile 3K guy, but he's recently really progressed in the longer distance races as well. Also, guys like Haptum Samuel, like he's a strength runner, and by virtue that makes him a good kicker because he's so strong, right? Like if you're so strong, you can run a 60-second 400 at the end of a 3K. That's going to be one of the better kicks in that field. I think it's going to take a 56-second last 400, so we'll see what happens there. But what do you think? What do you think they're going to close in if it's a sit and kick race?
I mean, I think maybe the better phrase is, okay, picks, like who do you think's going to win based on that? You can have some names.
Yes.
I know which way I would fall.
Yeah.
I think personally, it doesn't matter if it's all out or sit and kick, it's going to be Ethan Strand. I think he has shown this season that he can do it all. You know, he's obviously run a 3:48 mile. He can run 7:33K. Yeah. He can go up to 5K and run fast there. So like he has that speed, but also the endurance. And so I do think he has the leg speed to get it done. Who will challenge him? I think it'd probably be Gary Martin because again, we've seen him also run a 3:48 mile, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think Ethan Strand is really, really, really good. He's not invincible, right? We saw Rocky Hansen outkick him in DMR earlier this year. I think that was unexpected for a lot of people. I'm going to give it to Haptum Samuel. He got hurt at the end of cross country, at the NCAA cross country championship. Obviously, he had to get stitches in his foot. That put him out for like 4 to 5 weeks. I think he's starting to kind of get back into that shape that he was in 3 months ago. And if that's the case, then he's really, really dangerous. I know he's doubling back from the 5K. I feel like that 5K is going to be a little bit more strategic, just based on the fact that you have 5 or 6 men in that 5K doubling back to the 3K, and they're a lot of the top dogs. I think they're going to try to keep that race a little bit slower. I wouldn't be surprised if it's won in like a 13:40 or so, and I think that'll really, really help Haptum.
Well, we'll have to see what happens this weekend. I know that's going to be one of the events I'll be watching, but I think to switch on the women's side, one of the events I'm really looking forward to is that women's 800. You know, especially at the NCAA level. I mean, you have an Olympic finalist in the field, multi-time NCAA champions. Like, it's just, there's so many great women in this race. How do you see this race unfolding?
It's been the race to watch for the better part of the year, just based on like how many times we've seen NCAA leads go down in that event, and then all of a sudden they just broke through and finally ran 2 sub-2s at SECs, right? So how do I see it playing out? Prelims are going to be sit and kick, and then the finals got to be as honest as possible, right? Like if you're any of those women, who do you like? Are you asking me who do I think is going to win? Because that's like a whole different question.
Well, okay, we can get to that at the end, but like let's break it down a bit. If you look at this field, and I'm pulling up this on my notes here just to refresh, you're going to have Juliette Whittaker, who's obviously the defending champion, won indoors and outdoors last year. She also made it to the Olympic final in Paris, so I mean, she had just a breakout season last year. She's trying to continue on that momentum. Then you also have someone like Rasheem Willis, who won this as a freshman back in NCAA indoors when he was back in Albuquerque. You also have Michaela Rose, who won an outdoor title when it was in Austin a couple years ago. You also have Megan Hunter of BYU, who's raced really well. Sanu Jallow of Arkansas, she's had a breakout year. She's one of only a few women in this field that has gone under 2 minutes. I mean, to get into this field, you had to run basically 2:01 to get in.
You just reminded me of something that just like completely clicked in my brain, but I think, so Willis, Whittaker, and I believe Michaela Rose all ran on the record-setting U18 4x8 here at this facility. So kind of interesting that they're all coming back together. Obviously not the same team. Obviously they've raced each other before, but interesting that they're all back on this track.
Was Sophia Goriron on that
I think
team
she
as
was.
well?
It was just an all-star team.
Yeah.
It's technically not a high school record because they were on separate teams, but it's a U18 world record. So, and I believe a U20 world record as well. Sorry, completely sidetracked there. Track geek, just completely track sickoed out. To your point, I think there are so many good women in this field. You obviously you have the former NCAA champs. You have someone like Victoria Bosong, Harvard University. I think she's really emerged. I think kind of going into the year, you would have thought, oh, Sophia Gorion's like the top dog from Harvard. Well, here comes Victoria Bosong, senior for Harvard, and just has suddenly been kind of lights out. And then you have Sophia as well. And so when you add all of these women into the pile, it really makes for a race that you don't know who's going to win, right? And I think that's what people love about the 800. Last year we saw Shane Cohen with that crazy kick. And it was like, oh, well, Shane's like, he's in dead last. There's no way he's going to win the race, and comes off the final curve at the outdoor championship and takes the win. And the 800 just produces those moments where it's a gutsy race, and the field is so close together that anyone can really take it.
And we'll have to see how the tactics come to play, because if you've ever watched any of these women race, they all have very different tactics. Think of someone like Michaela Rowe. She's always going to go to the front and try to front run from and win based on that. Yeah. You have someone like Juliette Whitaker, who's more content staying with the pack, and then on that last lap, like surging up and coming from behind to win a race. So very curious to see how it plays out. If you had to pick the winner, who would you choose?
Oh, I got to go with Whitaker, just based on like the summer she had. I think going into the year, you wrote an article saying like she has a chance to break, I think, Mo's record. Just the fact that that's even in the conversation, I think, is proof that like she's really, really good, and she knows how to run these championship races really, really well. I think Megan Hunter has a chance. I think Megan Hunter and those BYU women have had an incredible 2024, 2025 so far, and they're riding this crazy wave of like momentum and just confidence and just like strength as a team. So those are my two kind of favorites. I would probably lean to Whitaker, but I think Megan Hunter has a great chance to perform well.
I'm glad you brought up Megan Hunter, because I know we saw her race where she ran, I believe, close to her PR. I think
it was her PR.
Yeah,
it was her indoor PR.
Yes, at the BU Terrier Classic, and I know afterwards I chatted with her, and she was just saying that like, I just am feeling this overwhelming amount of confidence this year, and this is just going to hopefully continue forward. And you know, as we mentioned, I think Coach Diljit Taylor does a great job of preparing her women for that championship-style setting. So I think they're going to be really prepared going to that final. But I think that's a great point you make about collegiate record. Like, I'm pulling this up here. I think about collegiate record, 158.40. You're right. I did say earlier this season, like right when it started, that maybe that would be under threat this year. Obviously, this would be the last chance any of these ladies can go get it. Like, do you think that is in play?
Listen, it's fast, right? I want to say yes because, like, track geek, like I want it to happen. Like, as a fan of the sport, you want to see that record go down. I don't think it's going to happen because how competitive the field is. I think it's going to be really hard for one or two women to kind of break out and for them to like line up in a you know, that train, right? Mm-hmm. I just think it's going to be too clustered. I think they're going to kind of be elbowing for position. I think they're going to be battling for a spot on the rail, and that's just not conducive to record racing, in my opinion. And so for that reason, I just don't see it happening this year.
Maybe I'll have to be optimistic. I got to go again.
Okay,
maybe I'll
go
be the detractor here. I think
contrarian.
You know, again earlier this season, I'll back it up. Like I said, I think this record can go down, and I think if anyone can do it, it's going to be Juliette Whitaker. I think she has just shown since this time last year that she has the guts to pull off not only a win, but to run fast every single time and like push that limit. If you ever see her at the end of a race, she's like gritting it out, especially that last 100. Like she knows what it takes to fight for places, fight for times, and so potentially I think if anyone gets it, it's going to be her.
Yeah, well, when you come from the Olympics and coming back to the NCAA, now the NCAA is very, very good.
Yes,
we know that. But when you go to the Olympics, like this kind of has to feel like a small stage. And for a lot of these women, this is the biggest stage, right? So, yeah, I credit to her. Like obviously, I think she's going to have a little bit more confidence than a lot of the other women in this race today, this weekend.
Speaking of records, I think an overarching discussion to talk about is, will we see any collegiate records go down? You know, I do have the women's 800 maybe. I think there are some other events where we actually legitimately could see some records. I look at an event like the women's 400 as one where we could see one go down. We've seen Aaliyah Butler, Isabella Whitaker just battling it out, running sub 50 last week or 2 weekends ago at SUCs.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your takes on this? Like, do you think, like, how fast do you think that 400 is going to go? Collegiate record? I know Britton Wilson has that at 49.48, I believe. Like, what do you think?
That Britton Wilson record is, like, insane.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at what she had to run compared to, like, what the previous mark was when Britton Wilson ran that, it was, like, unworldly. It was 2023, I believe. That's another record. I don't see it happening.
Wow.
It's too big of a record. I think Isabella Whitaker, I think she's going to probably be a little scorned that she lost at SECs. I think Aaliyah Butler kind of pulled one. I don't want to say pulled a fast one because Aaliyah Butler is obviously incredibly talented. But I think Isabella Whitaker is going to try to get a little bit of redemption. I don't know. That record just seems, I don't want to say untouchable, but like this year, I guess if it's going to happen, it's going to be this year. right?
I think there is a great chance it could go down, and I will outline exactly why I think it could go down. Okay. So I was at SECs. I watched both of these women race.
Yeah.
And through the prelims, I mean, Aaliyah Butler ran like 50 low, and Isabella Whitaker also went in the 50s, and that's just them jogging through the prelims. And then when it comes to the finals,
jogging.
Well, that wasn't jogging,
Yeah.
but I think that I feel like there's more left in there, and I think they both push each other in a way that could potentially push one of them to a record. You know, I think there's something about having that competition that pushes people to even faster times, and so whether it's Whitaker pushes Butler, but Butler pushes Whitaker, I think in that way that could be good. Again, like I guess to talk about the environment after that race, I know Butler crossed the line and she almost looked it was almost effortless, and then Whitaker kind of collapsed on the ground. It was almost interesting. It was almost looked like she was happy but frustrated at the same time. She started like slamming the ground, and it's like hard to see if she was excited or like because she saw the time and obviously ran under 50 seconds, but that is a breakthrough right there, and so I think she's got to be happy with that. And so I think because of that, like seeing that little bit of like competitiveness, I think that to me is what can potentially make this 400 this weekend a collegiate record-breaking race.
Well, those are the second and third fastest times in NCAA history.
In American history.
In American history, not even in NCAA history. You text me, I'm sitting at my desk, and I was kind of monitoring all the conference meets from remotely, just doing the things we do, and you're texting me like, oh, how fast is that? And I'm like, and you're like, where is it ranked collegiately? I was like, oh, second and third. And you're like, where is it ranked in American history? I'm like, second and third. Like, yeah. So to your point, an American record could go down, and I completely respect it. Again, Britt Wilson, it is so fast.
I know.
Now, both of these women have experience on the biggest stage. Like, they ran at the Olympic trials. Am I correct in saying Isabella was on the
They both
relay
made
team?
it to the Olympics. She didn't end up competing, but she did go to Paris. There's also another Olympian in this field, Caitlin Brown. We can't forget to mention her
I know,
as well.
Isn't that crazy? Like, we're talking about these two women, but you have like so many women like right behind them.
Crazy to think, 3 Olympians right there in that women's 400, which I think will be really exciting. Speaking of records, I think, what are some other events that you think could be fast enough, or like matchups that you're looking forward to that could potentially get towards that record-breaking area?
I think the 800. I think the men's 800.
Okay.
Hear me out. So, Tanoda Matsuda, coming into the year, he ran that number one, he opened the year at like the BU opener with like a 3:56 mile, which when you look at like the mile list isn't incredible, but like that was his first mile in over a year and a half. He hadn't run a mile since high school, so to come out and run in your season opener a 3:56 is kind of crazy. And then ran 1:45 for the 800. And we thought, no one's going to touch Tanoda. Like, he's untouchable this year. Okay, whatever. It's sign, check, deliver it. Obviously, he broke the NCAA record in the 1K as well. Again, improved upon his own record. And then last week of the season, at the BU last chance meet at BU, Aiden McCarthy comes out of absolutely nowhere. I don't think many people even knew who he was. Runs an NCAA lead, second or third fastest time in NCAA history. I'd have to look at the stats. And suddenly it's like, okay, we knew Tanoda was going to kind of be pushed by a few different men in that race. You have Darius Smallwood, Penn State. You had Dan Waukee, Villanova. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But it was like, it's just going to be foregone conclusion. Tanoda will get it. But now it's like, someone can run faster, like just as fast, if not faster than him. Suddenly, like that NCAA record's in reach. It's a 1:44.85. I have to look at the name here because it's from 1989. It was Paul Orang from UVA in 1989 ran 1:44.84.
I mean, that's a long-standing record right there.
It is, and it's fast compared to like what they've run so far. Obviously, we need to shave like 5 or 6 tenths off of their time. So, but like, it's gettable, right? Like, it has to be.
I mean, I could see it happening. I love that you bring up Aiden McCarthy, though, because I think it's just he came out of nowhere, and now all of a sudden he's in this conversation with Tanoda. I think he's like the top 2 favorites in this race. He was racing against pros against BU, and he beat all of them.
Yeah.
And he also PR'd. He had never broken 1:46 before.
Insane.
And then runs 1:45 low. Like, that's just crazy. And so I think, honestly, maybe having them two in the race along with all the other guys in the field, like, maybe it pushes them to fast times.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. No, I mean, I want to talk more about the 800 a little bit later, but it's just that's another fun race. Like, that's just gonna be one of those races, and it'll be interesting to see. Like, Tanoda's currently listed on the DMR entries. Is he gonna race that? I don't know. But the problem is, like, a lot of these distance schools, they have teams, DMR teams that are in contention, right? So as a coach, do you want to sacrifice the team or do you want to sacrifice the individual, right? Do you want to use, so Aiden McCarthy has the advantage of like Cal Poly's not in the DMR. So do we want to use Tenoda on a potential record-setting winning DMR team, or do we want to keep him fresh? When you look at the points breakdown, it makes much more sense to put him in the DMR and the 800, right? Like you want those points, and you can score 6 to 8, 6, 10, even 10 points in the DMR. Tenoda comes back and even scores 8 points. Well, then you're netting positive, right? So coaches have a lot of work to do this weekend.
Exactly. It's all about being strategic and placing certain guys certain places.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think one race I'm looking forward to where I wrote this down in my predictions that like this is the event I'm picking to see definitively a collegiate record could go down, and it's just going to be insanely fast. Men's 200.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that for a second.
I'm going to have to let you take that out.
That's okay.
That's your event.
I'm very invested in the 200,
Yes.
especially after SEC indoors. So the current men's 200 meter record, Elijah Hall of Houston from 2018, 20.02. Now I know that's fast. We're almost in sub 20 territory.
That's
but
really
we've
fast.
had two guys go 20.2 and below. You have blanking Carly McCarru.
Yes, Carly.
And then Taramba from Auburn. Sorry, brain freeze there.
Yeah.
But like Taramba went 20.13, and McCarru went.
You are an expert at that name, by the way.
So I may not be an expert, but you know, I think seeing those guys race at SEC indoors, like my goodness, were they just going full throttle, just like putting it on the line, and that was just SEC indoors in College Station. Obviously, a completely different stage once you get to NCAA's.
Yeah. I had the chance to follow Carly around a little bit. We were filming workout with Cy Russell, Devin Charlton at UK, also doing a workout with Keaton Daniels. And Carly was there, and we kind of followed around the men as they were doing their workout a little bit. And he's a funny dude. And honestly, a really, really good dude. Olympian as well.
Yes.
I believe he represents Nigeria. We're going to have to fact check that. We'll put it in the show notes. But regardless, he was at the Olympics in 2024, so another guy who has that experience, right? So fun event. 20.02 is so fast. You'd have to go sub 20 indoors, which is like, that's why they don't even compete the 200 at the world stage, because it's like they don't want people getting hurt because people are going too fast on a 200 meter track. It's like you're putting your body on the line to run that fast indoors. It's insane.
I think it can be done though. Maybe I'm just an optimist, but like just seeing these guys run, especially those two in particular, like it can be done.
I don't even think I can run 100 meters in 20 seconds right now. Like feeling the way my legs feel after a 7-mile run this morning, like I don't think it can be done. It'd be like all out.
They're not washed up like we are.
No. They are much more fit.
Okay, I'm gonna throw out just a couple more records here before we move on.
Yeah.
Men's 400.
Men's 400.
It's currently 44.49. Christopher Morales-Williams from last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think just based on the fact that these men have raced Christopher Morales last year, I think it gives them a little bit of an edge. Like, I think you go into the race knowing, like, oh, I've raced that guy before. Like, if he can do it, I can do it. At least you have to have that confidence.
Yeah.
Of course, they're not racing for records this weekend, but
sure.
You know, it's always in the back of your mind. Like, when you're that good, you're that fast, you're that close to an NCAA record, like, I mean, how cool would it be to come out of this championship with not only the win, but an NCAA record? 44.9. I mean, you saw Nathaniel Ezekiel work out this past week, so talk to me about like what kind of shape he's in. If anyone can do it, can he do it?
Sure, I think if anyone does it, it's Nathaniel Ezekiel. We went to Baylor for a workout Wednesday and just followed him around. He did some broken 400s. He was going. It was a hard effort. He was throwing up on the side of the track there.
Feel that. Been there.
I think he's prepared. He's gone 44.7 this year. He did really well at Big 12, so he's coming into this ready prepared. He's also then after this going to go straight to China for World Indoor Championships to compete for Nigeria. If you see him, I mean, he's like just built like you would see a 400 runner. He's very tall, like his stride, like he's built, I think, for that 400. So record or not, like I think that it'll be interesting to see how fast or if he's going to be the favorite in this 400 potentially on the men's side. Yeah.
Any other men do you think can kind of, you know, take that in the 400? Anyone like else that you think is even close?
Okay, I got to give a shout out to the Aggies here. Our former coworker Olivia Ekpene. This is for you, Ahmad Robinson. Yeah. He's had a great year so far in the 400. I know he's definitely had his eye on that NCAA title. What are your thoughts on Ahmad Robinson?
He's the one of the most fun people to watch.
Yes.
Like, legitimately, not like just because of his running, but like his personality, like everything about him. He's just like a fun dude to. I've never met him. Like, I'm like completely disclaimer. I've never met him. But just watching the workout Wednesday that you guys filmed with Texas A&M and just like watching how he goes with the team, was so willing to just put the vest on. I know I'm not talking about the running ability right now and his ability to get the record or even win the 400, but I think you're right in the sense that we've seen him run really, really, really fast times this year. Whether it was 300, I think he ran a 500 as well, went a little over distance, and obviously in the 400, which is his specialty event, I think he's definitely a contender, right? Like, he's got to be. And Texas A&M wants a chance at the team title.
I know.
It would be really helpful if he can get 10 points for them.
It would be very helpful.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they just have a great 400 crew in general. They're one of the favorites to win that 4x4 to conclude the meet. And I know we're going to get to the team titles in just a bit. Before we get to that, though, I'm curious to see, I know we've chatted records, we've chatted specific events to watch and athletes to follow. Do you have any, like, hot takes or dark horses? You know, there's always going to be something unpredictable that happens at NCAAs. Like, what are your thoughts on some of those, you know, things
I've got
that
a lot.
happen?
I've got a lot of hot takes. We'll go quick. We'll go quick. I promise.
Okay.
I promise.
Okay.
So, Takora Humphrey.
Okay.
Long jump. I think she can break Jasmine Moore's American record.
American record?
Or collegiate record. Collegiate record. So the collegiate record is 7.03 meters, obviously, not feet. Humphrey has jumped 6.94 this year. Third collegiate all time.
Okay, but do you know the jump that you have to make from 6.94 to 7.03?
Yeah, you need another tenth of a meter, which I don't know what that comes out to, but you know, I think that's definitely gettable. The biggest stage, this crowd is going to be really, really loud. This facility is going to be bumping over the next couple of days. Hot take, I think she gets it. I also have Johnny Dwyer winning the men's 60, which hot take because he's entered like 8th or 9th in the seeded entries, but like the 60 is so close. He's literally 0.03 of a second off of the NCAA lead. There's 9 men right there. I think 9 men within 0.05 of a second. He, Penn State freshman, ran at the USATF Indoor Championships a couple weekends ago. Has championship experience. I think for a young guy, he has more experience than most men do as freshmen. If he gets a good start, he didn't get a good start at USA's. He got a really bad start, actually. If he gets a good start, I think he has the strength to pull it off.
See, I don't entirely hate your hot take there because I do think the men's 60 is one of the most wide open events this weekend. There's no one that really stands out to me as, okay, 100% this person's going to win.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I also have a hot take for the men's 60. I think Jordan Anthony of Arkansas is going to win the 60 meters.
Yeah.
I saw him win at SECs a couple weeks ago, and I think he's fired up. You know, I know he was talking with Julio Ramirez, who interviewed him afterwards, that, you know, he's still trying to work on a couple phases. He's like, my start is kind of not good, but, you know, once I get going and, like, you know, at my top speed, like, I can make up that room. So if he just, like, works on those few things that he said he wanted to work on.
Yeah, but, like, he has a week and a half to work on it. Like, I don't know. I hear you. I just, like, the 60 makes me so nervous with the start.
Yeah.
That's why Christian Coleman's so good at the event. Like, he doesn't have the top end speed, but he's able to get out of the block so fast no one can catch him. I know we're not talking about the professional side of things, but the 60 this weekend, it's all about who can execute the start the best. It doesn't matter how fast you are down the stretch. Like you said, the field is so close. Like, if he gets a great start, awesome. If he's not able to execute, if he's not able to react within, 0.13, 0.14, like, he's in trouble.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I think, again, men's 60, whoever wins, like, it could be a surprise.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other hot takes?
Any other hot takes? I definitely have one written down here. Dan Waukee to win the men's 800.
We just talked about the 800.
I know.
Tsunoda and Adam McCarthy.
But I know. I'm really hyped for that race. But I think Dan Waukee could steal one. We've seen him race Tsunoda like 2 or 3 times this year. Obviously, they raced at the Big East Championship. Dan Waukee wasn't able to get around Tsunoda. Wasn't able to really put in a strong move to get down to the rail. But Dan Waukee, freshman Villanova, hasn't shown much of those freshman jitters. It's just been really, really consistent. And so, hot take, Dan Waukee wins the men's 800.
Interesting. Well,
yeah.
We'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, we will see. We'll see.
All right, I think it's about time. I know we've gone through different events in storylines. Team battle. Like, that's the ultimate thing, right? All these athletes are here fighting for points to win, ultimately, a team championship for their programs. I know we just put out some prediction graphics on social media, giving our picks yesterday. Perhaps we can dive into that a little bit, but who do you have winning? Let's start with the men. Who do you have winning the NCAA indoor men's team title?
Yeah, I have USC winning. I just think they've been the most balanced throughout the year. You obviously have Brackens. You also have J.C. Stevenson, who have just been dominant in their respective events. Maybe not dominant, but like they've just been consistently putting themselves in position to number one win meets. Rise to NCAA leaderboards. I believe they're both sitting top in. Johnny Brackens has top in the long jump, I believe. Maybe the 60 hurdles. We'd have to go back and look. But regardless, I mean, they both just been so consistent for those. So they have two guys that we know are going to score a ton of points.
Yep.
And then behind them, like USC just has so many just like random guys who can either score points in the jumps, score points in the hurdles, score points in the sprints.
I mean, you have Johnny Blockberger, who's great in that 2 and that 4, so I think he could score big points. And then they have a really good 4x4, which at the end of a meet, if they can score some big points there, that may be all they need to do to win a team title.
And we saw that at the Big Ten Championship, a little bit of controversy there. Yep. Oregon Ducks get the sweep. I believe there was, 4x4 controversy. What did you see there?
See, I think that may be a reason. I also agree with you for the record that USC will win the men's team title. But again, going back to Big Tens, I think it's because they will be motivated because of what happened at Big Tens.
Yeah.
USC looked like they were going to be in position to win the team title. After the 4x4, they got second. Purdue won. However, even though Purdue won the race, they filed a protest against USC for, I believe, incidental contact.
It's brutal.
It got approved, and then because of that, Oregon won the team title. I mean,
it's so spiteful. Like Purdue was not in the team battle at all. It's like last day of life. I get being mad, and I get the protest. Like, I don't blame the coaches for protesting at all. I would have done the exact same thing. But it's just like, damn, that's brutal. Like, USC moves to the Big Ten, has their chance to win their first Big Ten title in the first year, whatever, and obviously just get it completely pulled out from under them after everything's done. Like, just brutal.
I think because of that, there's going to be some more competitiveness coming into this championship. You look at someone like Johnny Brackens, who, like you said, very consistent this year. Stevenson, consistent in that 60 meters and the long jump. Big points to those guys. If those two score huge points, I don't see how anyone else can beat them now. However, I will say.
Here we go. Texas A&M plug. Here it comes.
Okay, so I did get a lot of heat online because I chose the Aggies as my runner-up this weekend and not my winner. But I'll explain what event I think is going to be the X factor.
Okay.
I think whatever happens in these 60-meter hurdles is going to be crucial to who wins the team title, right? If you have someone like Johnny Brackens, who is the favorite going into the event, but then Texas A&M has someone like Jaqueline Scott, who is also a favorite going into this race in the 60-meter hurdles. I think seeing how that plays out between those two, the points that are gotten there and everything, like that could be key. If JQ can have a phenomenal race and potentially win, then Texas A&M may win the team title.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit on it a little bit. I had Arkansas coming up runner-up. I just think Arkansas has this little niche, and it's just like depth on the distance side that many teams don't have. We mentioned Yassine Abdallah earlier. We mentioned their DMR team. Obviously, they also have a few really good 5K guys, Kiprop, and then, I mean, they have great field and sprinters as well. So when you have like just a combination of just depth, I think I made my picks based on, if you go to our projections, you can kind of see the breakdown of where each team's scoring points. A lot of where I made my picks was based on how even they were across the board, right? And I think Arkansas just has that layer that Texas A&M has and USC has. And so when you have those three teams that are probably your three favorites, it makes for really interesting, like, teams battles to watch. So you have to watch every single event because every single point matters.
All right, we talked about the men's side, women's side. I know my pick personally.
Yes.
I think we agree here.
Yeah.
I think do we?
No, we don't. We don't agree.
Right.
We don't agree.
I was thinking you agreed.
I was like, wait a minute.
I have the Arkansas women dominating this competition. You have the Oregon women.
Yes.
I'll start with you. Why Oregon? I think that's a little bit of a hot take. I think most people would pick Arkansas. So why are you going with the Ducks?
So I've got so many notes on this. I literally wrote like a like an essay about the Oregon Ducks and why they can win this championship. I'll keep it brief though, so the show isn't like 30 hours long. The Oregon Ducks, again, are in this unique position where I don't think they've reached their potential yet. You look at a lot of their returners, Jaden Mays, Jada Ross, like they're not leading the NCAA. And I mean, respectively, like really talented women throughout the NCAA. But those are women going into the year that we would have pegged as our favorites, like hands down. Jada Ross obviously won the NCAA outdoor title in the shot put. Jaden Mays has been a contender throughout all last year. She was a contender. Just no matter what the event was, 60, 100, 200 was always a contender. So 2 women right there that I think if they have good days, Jada Mays could easily score a lot of points in both the 60 and 200. Jada Ross could easily score 10 points for them in the shot put. Right there, if the math works out well and they both have really good days, you're already almost at like 25-ish, 24-ish points, somewhere in that ballpark. And then on the distance side, Salon Al-Yadiz, I hope I didn't butcher that. It's probably one of the hardest names in the NCAA to say. Salon broke the NCAA record in the mile earlier this year. Wilma Nielsen is currently ranked 5th. They both are within 2 seconds. Salon Al-Yadiz has ran like 4:23, and obviously, like I said, NCAA record. Wilma Nielsen, 4:25. They can both score a ton of points in the mile. They have to execute. So let's say they get another 10 points there. Let's say they don't win. Neither one of them wins, but they get 10 points. You're at 35 points now. DMR, the Oregon DMR team could win. Let's say they do, 45 points, and that's not including any other scores. I think it's going to take 45 points to win this championship, maybe 44, 43. I think the Oregon Ducks have the tools to get it done.
Interesting breakdown.
Okay.
I agree.
See?
I think
you're warming up to it. You're warming up to it.
However, I just don't think anyone's going to be able to match what Arkansas can do on the day. They do a really good job of preparing their athletes for that championship setting. They're the defending champions. They just have the depth across the sprints, across the fields. They also have Peyton Noe in the distance events that I think can score big points. And I think there's just not, at the end of the day, there's just going to be too many points and too many people in those finals stealing away some points that no one else will be able to make up. So I think that's why I go with the Razorbacks. However, I will throw out another sleeper team. Okay. I think it's a little bit controversial.
Here we go.
BYU.
Yeah.
If you look at the breakdown, it is possible. So like, if you do the math, you look at someone like Lexi Halliday-Lowry in the 3K and the 5K. You score big points there. She's one of the top seeds. I mean, that could be anywhere from like 15 to 20 points right there. You also have Riley Chamberlain, who's going to be in the 3K. She's been one of the top athletes in the NCAA. If their DMR wins, like that's even more points. And they also have some other athletes, I believe, in the 400 and some other events as well. And if they can sneak in just a few points, like all those few points matter. And if you do the math, it is possible.
Yeah, it's possible for sure. I just think they're going to be spread a little bit thin. Yeah. Now BYU women, obviously they won the NCAA cross country championship. They have a ton of depth, like more depth than any other women's team in the nation on the distance side. But like you really need to rely on, like you said, Riley Chamberlain to kind of perform really well. And I don't know. I mean, now that I'm like thinking about it more, it's like I can see how the points like work out, right? Like it's just it needs to be a perfect storm, kind of like Oregon. They both need to have perfect days. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's all it takes at the NCAA championship, though. You have a perfect day, come out with an NCAA title.
We'll have to see how it all plays out this weekend. John, I think that does it for our preview show. Any other closing remarks?
Oh gosh, no, you're gonna get me in trouble with like a crazy hot take, but no, NCAA Blue, we're looking forward to a fun weekend, so make sure you stay tuned to FloTrack channels for all the action.
That's right, please be sure to follow FloTrack on all of our social channels, go to the site, go to our YouTube for all the content you will want from the NCAA Indoor Track and Field Championships. Thanks for watching.